Okay, the first part of this tutorial had two objectives, I guess. The first was to emphasize that content of language content is really the raison d'etre, the reason for language's being, to express content of mind, and I should add affect, feeling states about that content. The second purpose was to emphasize that content ideation is relational in nature. And those Leahy content categories that represent the types of ideas we can have as human beings: existence, action, locative action, causality, etc. Those content categories and the content that we refer to linguistically is relational in nature. It's about relationships. And I directed you to the videos of my children playing, and the little boy who was putting beads together, his task that he was engaged in, to emphasize and illustrate that relationship making is intrinsic to children's behavior, and in fact to all of our behavior, and in fact it is in the process of making relationships that language gets generated and that language develops. Now, the point I want to make now in today's really the second part to the introduction to the Bloom and Leahy assessment procedure that we're focusing on here. The second point is this. My goal today is this: to emphasize first that language content is expressed through language form, and particularly through syntax. Through syntax, we cannot directly open our brains up and say, here, look, this is the ideas that I'm having. These are my content of mind. No, we can't do that. We have to express that content. And how do we do it? Through language form. And that is syntax. So to understand and to be able to evaluate language content, we have to first look at syntax. That is, if the content is being expressed in a sentence, through sentences. Now, today's preamble to the subsequent videos on level 2, level 3, and level 4 content form interaction analyses, today's preamble focuses on sentences and the basic nature of a sentence, the basic structure of a sentence, a complement, and a verb, through an action or a state of some sort. So the core of any sentence, the core relationship of any sentence, when we refer to it syntactically, that core relationship, that relationship is between S, subject, V, verb, and C, complement. Now, if you remember, during the 640 course, and within context of your language sample analysis, I stressed very strongly, in fact required, that for any single verb sentence, you actually mark the sentence for a subject, verb, complement relationship. You mark the subject, the verb, and complement. And I stressed that SVC relationship is fundamental, it's neurologic, it's genetic. I used a Lego block, I think, and if not, let me introduce the idea. A Lego block as a representation of that SVC relationship. It is fundamental to a sentence. It is fundamental to what language content is about, which is about a relationship. It's about relationships through action, or through a state of being of some sort, through a state or an action. It is a relationship. So all I'm doing today, and I'm emphasizing today, and I'm asking you to reflect upon, before we go into the specific content categories is the importance of that SVC relationship and the importance of identifying the subject-verb complement relationship in any sentence. You cannot, in fact, do a Bloom and Leahy analysis appropriately if you do not have an appreciation for the fact that it is about how sentences are naturally generated by the vis-a-vis the function of our minds. And our minds make relationships and they generate relationships. And that fundamental relationship in any sentence is a subject-verb complement relationship. If you had difficulty with the language sample analysis first time through during the summer, I am suggesting that you did not get to a point where you sufficiently appreciated that SVC relationship and identified that as the core, something core and fundamental to what a sentence is about and really what meaning is about. It's what represents meaning. It is how our minds evolved to represent meaning through language. So let's look, I'm lecturing to you above an SVC slide or display. And just take a look at that. Let's take a look at that for a moment. SVC represents the core relationship in the generation of a sentence. That relationship is going to be a content relationship, an idea relationship. It is going to be the relationship that is referred to, that corresponds in the Bloom and Leahy analysis to the verb relation content category. That is the idea category, the kind of idea relationship that the child is making to generate that sentence, the primary deep structure, to use a Chomskyan term, relationship. So take a look. On the top sentence, I wrote the dog ate the bone and marked S as the subject, V as the verb, and C as the complement. That sentence therefore codes that SVC relationship, that is the core content relation. That content relationship revolves around the verb and its subject and complement. And that content category, and we'll review that again in our subsequent tutorial lectures, but if you recall from the summer course, that content category is action. The verb gives you the sense of the kind of the action that made that relationship. It is an action relationship. Now, here's another example. Sentence number 2 here. The dog is brown. I marked the core S, that is the head of the subject, that is dog. The verb here is, which is a state verb, static verb, an existential verb. And brown. SVC is dog is brown. That makes SVC, that makes the core, that codes, that is the way we represent the core content relationship, content category, the verb relation content category. And that content category is attribution. Because being brown is a relationship between the dog and an attribute of itself. And it's a state relationship, it's static, thus the copula verb is. SVC, dog is brown, the core content category, the verb relation content category, the core content relationship is attribution. Now here's another sentence, and this sentence points to the fact that in any sentence there can be two kinds of relationships being made. Two kinds. One is the core verb relationship, which is between S, V, and C, which will be the core, basic, deep, fundamental relationship of that sentence, the fundamental content category. We call it the verb relation content category. But it is possible to have other content coordinated or related to the full sentence. So let's take a look at this. Big dog chased the cat. In the big dog chased the cat, we have dog as the head noun subject, dog. The verb is chased, and cat is, the complement is cat. Dog chased cat. That again, as in the first sentence, that is an action relationship. That is the core content category. It is the verb relation content category. It's what generated the sentence. It's an action relationship. However, there is another relationship in that sentence, the relationship between the dog and its size. Big, big. But big is not S, it is not V, and it is not C. It is an extra component of the noun phrase subject. It's outside of the S. It's outside of the V. It's outside of the C. It is outside of the SVC relationship. Therefore, we recognize that as not the verb relation content category, but as another kind of relationship. It is the non-verb relationship. It is not the subject of the verb. It is not the verb itself. It is not the complement of the verb. It is an additional constituent. It is coordinated. And when the child's mind organized the sentence, we believe that the child's mind first organized dog chased cat, and then added to it, brought into the organization the additional content. And that content category is, that content corresponds to the word big. And big is an attribute. So the non-verb relation content category in that sentence is attribution. The verb relation content category is the SVC one, dog chased cat. It is action. Now what I need you to do as you reflect upon this little lecture that I'm doing today, these comments I'm making, is to try to develop an appreciation for, a feeling for, that core SVC relation in a sentence. Because that core, without that appreciation, you will not understand or appreciate the Leahy analysis format. You will not be able to actually accurately conduct a Leahy analysis unless you recognize that content is accessible only through initial analysis of syntax, and that content is relational in nature. And the kinds of content relations that are made when sentences are generated, they are genetically based. They are core neurological structures in the mind. And they must be identified by us speech-language pathologists in order for us to understand the nature and the quality of a child's language, and ultimately to conduct assessments and detect whether or not the child has a language delay or a language disorder or not. And in terms of intervention planning, to guide us in goal setting. In goal setting. We will come back to that. But now I have identified two fundamental relationships that one can find in a sentence. The one that generates the sentence, the neurological SVC core deep structure relationship, and the coordinated relationship where another content category, another bit of content is added to the sentence. And we call that a coordinated or nonverb relation bit of content. And because we are linguistic people, as speech-language pathologists, we use the specifics of what the child is talking about, a dog in the act of chasing a particular cat, to understand the neurological component of the sentence, that is the SVC and the content category, the type of ideation that's being expressed in the sentence. And that is a semantic relation that's being made in the mind with reference to the specifics that the child is talking about. Now, the final example that I give you here, and the final thing I'll have to say today, is let's think about this sentence. The big dog sat on my chair. Now, in that sentence, you won't see the error, but I made an error. I just corrected it. The sentence reads, the big dog sat on my chair. Now, there's lots of words there, you see, and lots of possible content. There's the word big, that's an attribute. There's dog, which all by itself you'd say, well, that's an object. That could be existence as a category. Sat, that's some kind of an action. On, that's a location. My is a possession. And chair is another object. Well, if we look at that stuff individually, we're confused because there's so many possible content, so much content there, and so many types of content or content categories. We clear our confusion up by first looking at the syntax of that sentence and identifying the SVC, subject-verb complement relationship, recognizing that is a neurological Lego block that exists in our mind that generated that sentence. The neurological Lego block is SVC, dog sat chair. Dog sat chair will represent a type of content, a verb relation content category. That verb relation content category, represented by or expressed by dog sat chair, that relationship, is locative action 1. It is a locative action 1. It's an object, it's an animate object, dog, who's changing location, shifting location, sitting on a chair. Dog sat chair. That is locative action. Now there's other relationships in that sentence. That is the relationship again between the dog and an attribute of the dog, bigness. That's attribution. And there's another relationship too. It's between the chair and its possessor, and that's possession. But those relationships are non-verb relations. They are not the core subject-verb complement, that neurologic core. Instead, they've been pulled into the sentence. And so they're a non-verb relation content. They each represent a non-verb relation content category, or what Leahy calls a coordinated content category. Two of them are in this sentence, attribution and possession. Actually, there's more than two, really, because you have the, which is specification, and the past tense of sat, which is time. You also have on, which specifies location, but we don't have to mark that as another coordinated category. It's fundamental to the verb relation content category. It's intrinsic to it, locative action. We will continue with this tutorial next time by going through specifically the specific content form interactions, especially the content, focusing especially on the content categories that comprise single verb sentences. That is level 3 content Leahy analysis format, which applies to single verb sentences. This, by the way, the SVC thing applies as well to multiple verb sentences, but for now we're going to focus on single verb sentences. And what I want you to take home from today's, take out of today's comments, or this tutorial, SVC tutorial, introductory tutorial 2, is that SVC, subject-verb complement, is a core relationship to any sentences, to any sentence. It is a neurologically built-in relationship, built into our mind, that is, by genetics. It is what organizes and pulls a sentence together. It is the core of what Leahy, of content, the expression of content of mind. It describes, it represents the relationship that Leahy and Lois Bloom refer to as the verb relation content category, the semantic relation that pulls a sentence together, that children and you and I adults, any speaker, are trying to express. And there's a second relationship that is embedded in sentences, and that is the coordinated non-verb relation content category that is added or pulled into the sentence after the subject-verb complement relationship is organized and expressed. We will come back to this in the next lecture, the next tutorial, in which I will go through again all of the level 3 content categories, and we'll practice identifying the verb relation content categories and the non-verb relation content categories, which you will have to do in when you conduct your next language sample.